Hi, I'm Christy McDonald, and here's what's coming up this week on One Detroit. It's all about education in a COVID world. We'll take a look at how schools are coping locally and how Michigan compares with other states around the country. Plus, we check in with our local student reporters from the PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs. They share their hopes and concerns. Also ahead, the struggle for support and teaching special education students. And then, how COVID has changed college for good with author Jeffrey Salingo. It's all coming up right now on One Detroit.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV,
the KRESGE Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. NISSAN Foundation. Ally.
Lawrence Technological University.
And viewers like you.
Hi there and welcome to One Detroit. I'm Christy McDonald. Thanks so much for joining me. All right, so here's the million-dollar question for you. How's the school year going for you and your kids? Here at my house, school is virtual with plans to transition to a hybrid later this fall. Other districts are in seat, still more are a hybrid. It's a difficult start to the school year. There's a lot of adjusting, there's some Zoom fatigue, and there's questions about the future. COVID has forced school districts to come up with plans that can rapidly change, but are supposed to deliver the learning and growth for each student while maintaining safety during a pandemic. And what may work for one neighborhood school may not work for another district. Coming up on this show, we're zeroing in on the start of the school year. Erin Einhorn with NBC News, based in Detroit, and Chastity Pratt, Education Bureau Chief for the Wall Street Journal, compare local and national issues with the beginning of the school year. Then the struggle with special education, how parents are trying to adjust, and what teachers are doing to help. Also ahead, our local student reporters from PBS NewsHour's Student Reporting Labs. They share their concerns with learning. And then, college during COVID, higher ed journalist and author Jeffrey Salingo on what has permanently changed for colleges and admission. It is all ahead on One Detroit.
We've seen local school districts open in the last few weeks across the state. Give us a sense of how things are going and what the biggest issues that districts are coming across at this point.
Well, I'm sure there are plenty of schools where it is going well, but I think there are lots and lots and lots of places where it is not. And lots of people are having a really, really, really hard time, especially families with special needs, families whose kids were behind academically for whatever reason, really need that extra support. The virtual school, I think about 60% of schools are offering some kind of in-person option, and a whole bunch of other schools are offering no in-person at all. And these kids are online and the connections are dropping and the audio is dropping out. And then for kids who are going to school in person, there's that fear, is there going to be a case? The numbers are going to come up and there's that fear. Is my child going to be exposed? For teachers, am I going to be exposed? Is my family going to get sick? So there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of dissatisfaction with how online school is going for those who are taking the safer choice of staying home.
Chastity, this of course fits into a national context where we've seen lots of other states take different approaches than we are doing here in Michigan. Some of them are doing the same. New York is a place where schools recently opened, and you're sort of responding to that. Give us an idea of how we compare to everybody else.
Well, Stephen, it's like Erin was saying, all of those fears that parents and families and educators had coming into the fall are now just crushing down upon us. There, of course, how do you keep kids safe? How do you test? for surveillance testing to make sure if someone gets it that they won't infect the class, and then the parents and community spread, and that, that whole avalanche. There's that fear, and that's everywhere. That's not just Michigan, it's everywhere. And of course, the issues with, can you log on? How do you log on? Is there going to be learning loss? We pretty much know that remote learning in the spring didn't work out very well. How's it going to work out in the future? I think right now we're still in the very beginning of school year. We haven't really gotten into teaching and learning yet because we're so really involved in keeping the pandemic at bay and getting kids online. New York City started school today for preschool. It's their third attempt at reopening, right? They've delayed it twice. Next week, you'll see your middle school and high school kids join in, and New York City is going to be sort of a beacon. If New York City can do it, everyone can do it. They have 1 million students, right? Think of it this way. Out of the 75 largest school districts in America, there's only a handful that are offering, in-person learning because it's all of the risks and, face it, the cost involved in that.
I think it's also worth noting that of the kids who don't have the option to go in person, they are significantly more likely to be low income. They're significantly more likely to be children of color. They're significantly more likely to be those children who most need the face-to-face, who most need the extra attention, and who are least likely to have the technology at home, the internet connection at home, a parent who's home to help them, or a caregiver who's home to help them. The kids who need to be in the classrooms most are the ones who aren't in the classrooms. Mm-hmm. And how that's going to look, states are all going to be required to give tests in the spring, high stakes tests. Yeah. And, I can't even begin to imagine what that's going to look like.
Yeah, that's what I want to sort of do in the last couple of minutes here is cast forward a bit. It seems like this is a change that is going to be with us for a while. The requirements to try to manage around the pandemic aren't going anywhere. And so I wonder if there are conversations taking place about additional kinds of changes that will be required to keep schools going.
Well, you've seen a lot of your larger school districts kick the can down the road. We'll decide later if we'll let the kids come back because they don't know how the community spread is going to look, especially when flu season starts, right? So there are all those issues that, like Erin said, testing is going to be a big deal. Standardized state tests. Mm-hmm. Already we know the ACT and the SAT are mostly out of the door at 2/3 of colleges. So what about standardized testing? If you don't have to take the ACT and the SAT mostly, why should you have to take a 3rd grade reading test remotely from your bedroom? How's that going to work out? So, and then we still don't know what's going to happen with the federal stimulus package. Is there going to be some relief for schools? Is it going to be enough? So right now, unfortunately, we're still in a wait and see in a lot of different states all over the country.
It seems like kids are adjusting the most. If they're home, they're not with friends, they may have Zoom fatigue, staring at a computer screen for hours on end, or hesitate to ask questions in front of the entire class online. Or if they're in person, they're cleaning workstations and making sure to socially distance. They all have different concerns and feelings. Well, this year we have a group of local high school students as part of the PBS NewsHour's Student Reporting Labs. They're going to be helping us tell the stories of what life is like at school during COVID.
I'm a little sad that we're going to start online. And I just think the thought of doing things online in my own room by myself, it's a very isolating feeling.
For me, I'm going to be going into school. I don't know, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm also excited to get back to school because it's been a really long time since I've actually physically been in school.
At my school, they're doing it kind of different. Everything is still online, but you can go to the school, which I need because if I'm at home, I just feel like I'll go to sleep or I won't take it as seriously as I should.
When you go into a public building, you don't know where these people have been, you don't know what they've been touching, you don't know who they've been around, and there's just no way that you can say, yeah, I'm completely clean and free of the virus. So I think that going completely online is the best course of action.
It's going to be weird the way teachers have to teach, as some of their students are going to be online, some of them are going to be face-to-face.
But I am kind of sad and skeptical about how this is going to work. I'm not really going to get that senior experience, the senior sunset, homecoming, our football games in the beginning of the year. I think it's going to be really hard for me.
I'm going to be doing my online work in my room right next to my bed and just should I sleep in a little bit longer?
And not everybody just has the perfect household that's quiet all the time. So I think that's going to be a huge disadvantage.
What I'm most worried about isn't me, it's my younger siblings. I have a very hyperactive 8-year-old brother and a 10-year-old brother with learning disabilities. I know they probably won't be able to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours.
What are exams or just basic tests going to look like? Also the fact that I have yet to take the SAT.
To prepare for school, I've been online shopping for school supplies. I'm going to need lots of hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes and all that stuff.
I'm preparing for school by just keeping myself educated on the state of our country right now, which is very disappointing.
I also don't have to eat school lunch every day anymore.
I'm gonna honestly just work as hard as I can online and look for upcoming colleges and, just try my best, so.
The challenges are difficult enough in class, but for special education students or kids who have IEPs, that's Individualized Education Programs, who learn in a different way and need certain supports, this has been a tough transition. We wanted to get a sense from the teacher, parent, and administrative perspective on how special education is being handled in districts. So first off, let's head to Livonia and the classroom of Casey Loisel at Emerson Middle School.
My name is Casey Loisel, and I am a special education teacher for students with moderate cognitive impairments. And I am at Emerson Middle School in Livonia Public Schools. So right now, general education students are learning from home, and the special education students had the option to come into the building face-to-face. So these are the desks in my classroom, and I have 6 students who come in the morning, and I have 4 students who come in the afternoon. And the desks that we have are spaced out so that each student is able to sit socially distanced from one another. I wear a mask and a shield while I'm teaching, and for them to not see our faces and our smiles, that's a lot of, the positive part of school. So our amazing PTA actually made us these buttons with our faces on it, so students are able to see our smiles even though they can't see them when they're covered up by a mask. So students, although they're only face-to-face in the building for 2 hours a day, they are provided with work to do at home. This is things through a Google Classroom, as well as a learning binder that Livonia has decided to do this year, which has been a fantastic resource for families. I feel fortunate that our students had the option to come face-to-face. A lot of them receive occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, physical therapy, vision services that it's very challenging to be taught through the computer. So while they are here for those 2 hours, it's really great that they're able to get those things and those direct services while they're here at school.
Our thanks to Casey. That's how one teacher in one district is doing it. That's just one perspective. For parents who are working with kids at home, it's not so easy.
Hello, my name is Patricia Davis. I'm the grandmother of a 7-year-old little girl attending Ann Arbor Public Schools this year by virtual learning.
I'm Eric McGrath, and I'm a parent of a child in Troy schools. His name is Gavin.
My name is Kyra Montgomery. I have a son, Kyron Montgomery, who's 13 years old. He has autism. He goes to Berger Baylor in Garden City Schools, and he is learning virtually.
One of her diagnoses is emotional impairment.
How do we, figure out how to move forward with a child with Gavin with dyslexia and these learning needs?
We just got to a place where face-to-face was working out. Then here comes COVID, and then a whole new learning process.
It's hard for the simple reason is she has a support team. Now, when school was in session, she had a wonderful support team.
One of the things that's hardest for him is actually kind of sitting still.
She's from her bedroom with her Chromebook to the kitchen table with it, to the living room with it, back to her bedroom.
For the last 3 days, Kyron has been sitting for 15 minutes, which I call milestones.
Actually, as part of his 504 plan, he's allowed to sit on a sort of like an exercise ball and kind of bounce a little bit up and down.
She was doing math online, and she just started getting very frustrated. She ended up kind of like having a meltdown.
Some of the accommodations, we can mimic at home. but some of them we can't.
I have to be there. And not only do I have to be there, I have to be present and I have to be mentally present. I have to be there to coach him through.
And I have to go to work, and you know, your mom has to go to work, and my older daughter, who's 13, she's in the middle school, and she doesn't have any learning trouble at all. Although she can't wait to go back to school in person, believe me.
Actually, right now, no one in the Ann Arbor Public School District, to my knowledge, knows when the kids will be back face-to-face interaction in the classroom.
And once we accomplish safety, then he can go back on campus. And truly, I'm not really hearing too much about when he'll be going back to school.
It looks like for Troy schools, as of yesterday, you could make a decision to have them go back or stay virtual. And it sounds like it's going to be phased in over the next several weeks. On the one hand, you know, extremely nervous about his risk of catching COVID and other illnesses, but we don't feel like we have another choice. Because for this learner, Gavin, the virtual is really not cutting it.
Welcome to Rachel Fuhrer, who is head of Special Education Services for the Eastern Upper Peninsula Intermediate School District, and also head of a statewide group that provides special education services to students. I wanted you to talk to us, giving your expertise, about the special challenges that are faced in trying to provide an adequate education to special education students in this environment.
In my work with the Michigan Association of Intermediate School District Administrators, we've recently done a survey of our membership, and that's all 56 intermediate school districts across the entire state of Michigan. We found that 80% of districts statewide are providing some face-to-face and hybrid instruction. So that's a great start to the school year. We're happy to be back in classrooms with kids, whether that's full-time, which is almost 60% of our schools, or in a hybrid part-time face-to-face program. However, in some places, and primarily based on local health department regulations, so as part of the governor's Return to Learn plan and the Return to Learn legislation, we're required to work very closely with our health departments. So, you know, some local health departments are providing advice that it's better to go slow and be safe. And so we're certainly going to follow those regulations. For students that are face-to-face, what we're finding as successes right now are, you know, everyone was worried about masks. Masks have been in the news quite a bit, but we're finding that that's an adult issue more so than a kid issue. Kids are really not having a problem with the masks. And so that tells me that within our schools, the first couple days of school, we've done some really good instruction around masks. But even more importantly, we have parents who are sending kids with the expectation that masks are going to be a part of everyday life. The sanitation, the hand washing. Yeah, it's been really remarkable.
And I'm assuming and making the assumption that in many cases, special education students require a higher staff to student ratio just to deal with the challenges they face. How are you meeting the staffing requirements?
We've had a hard time retaining some of our staff. Some folks, again, because of their own health status, are choosing not to come back. And we were already in a critical shortage of school personnel throughout the state. And so it's a real difficulty. I know in our low incidence programs, so programs for students with an autism spectrum disorder or cognitive impairment, for example, we run a 3-to-1, 3 students to 1 adult ratio for staffing. And it's just really hard to find folks that are good enough to come and work with our kids. I should mention, however, that just like everything else, the things that we do cost money, and special education has been historically underfunded for many, many years. There have been several research studies done on that, and the latest numbers coming out of the 18-19 school year were that special education in Michigan is underfunded by $750 million a year. If you add the additional costs of responding to the pandemic on top of that shortfall, you can see that we're going to have a really hard time adequately resourcing what needs to happen right now.
We've been talking a lot about higher education, college and universities in a COVID-19 world, not just the remote learning, but how that changes the value of the education as well, and how the pandemic really is a disruptor. I was reading a recent column that talked about the future of college admissions, and as a parent of a high school junior, that's definitely on my radar. And it mentioned a new book out this month called Who Gets In and Why? A Year Inside College Admissions. And the author is journalist Jeffrey Salinga, who joins me now. Jeffrey, it's good to see you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
You know, you've been writing about higher ed for over 20 years. And before we get into what you found in the book while you embedded in 3 schools and took a look at the admissions processes there, I'd like to get a big picture from your perspective of how COVID has really changed college and maybe perhaps altered the future of higher ed.
Well, I think one big way it's changed it is that now many students are living off campus, taking classes remotely. And one of the things that colleges have always sold is the idea of residential education in a specific location. But when you're online, you kind of lose both of those things. You not only lose the residential piece, living and eating and socializing with your friends, but you're also losing the idea that you're going to college most often in a specific location, whether it's a city or a rural area or a specific state. And colleges have sold both of those things as kind of the ideal of American higher education, and they've lost that in the pandemic. In terms of admissions, probably the biggest change right now is more than 400 colleges and universities have gone test optional over the summer, largely because it's practically impossible right now especially for high school seniors to take the SAT or ACT.
If the students can't have that on-campus college experience right now because of COVID and not knowing how long this might go, does this change now where students are going to want to go, especially since we're looking at how much college costs these days?
I think you're going to start to see some shifts in student choices. I think number one, I think students are going to stay closer to home, particularly if the pandemic continues, because I think parents don't want them far off if they're going to have to be stuck coming home. The second thing I think is you're going to see many more students considering public colleges or local community colleges, at least to get their start. Community colleges really offer a low cost option, particularly if you're going to be online. You might as well be online close to home anyway. And many of those courses could transfer. Public colleges, I think, are also going to become more popular for their lower costs.
Are you going to start to see colleges and universities have to offer more in a different way? Is it going to be more technology? Is it going to be different things to try to differentiate themselves?
I think you're going to see 2 things. First of all, I think online education in some form or fashion is here to stay. We're going to see a lot more hybrid education, meaning even when the pandemic is over, I think elements of what we've been through over the last couple of months with online education is going to be here to stay. I think students and parents are going to be looking for colleges that provide them a job after graduation. And what are the activities during college that help prepare them for a job? Internships, project-based learning, other types of hands-on co-op programs and things like that get students into the workplace, out of the classroom. I think parents and students are going to be looking, especially in this economy, for those colleges that help prepare them for the workforce afterwards.
Are we going to see the loss? Are we going to see colleges shut down? Are we going to see certain ones
We are going to
just
see some
won't be able to
colleges shut down.
survive this?
We're already seeing some colleges shut down. I think we will see an increase. I think we're going to see some colleges merge. But colleges are pretty resilient places over time. Many of them have lasted centuries and much longer than many Fortune 500 companies. They tend to be resilient.
So this brings us now down the road to admissions and what you have just recently written about. What do colleges and universities have to do now to try to recruit, to try to get eyeballs onto their school?
It's very hard right now because most of the recruiting in higher education is person to person. They have open houses on weekends and they do the college tour where you're actually eating in the dining hall, seeing the dorm rooms. They have admissions officers fan out across the country visiting high schools. None of that is happening right now. In some ways, though, I think this is actually a better time to search for colleges because you're not limited by geography. You're not limited by an itinerary of how many colleges you could get to go see in a day. There are now a ton of virtual programs. There's a lot of students who have recorded these great videos on YouTube showing a day in the life of their colleges. So you get a real feel from real students what it's like. You have admissions officers now who can't travel. And so they're in their offices doing Zoom meetings, having calls with students So in many ways, if you're a student looking at colleges, you can have a much broader perspective now on what might be a good fit for you.
For more information on Jeffrey's book, Who Gets In and Why, just head to our website at onedetroitpbs.org. We are going to continue to follow what's happening in our schools this fall. If you have a story we should cover, find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at One Detroit. Let us know what's on your mind. That's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week on One Detroit. Take care.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV,
the KRESGE Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. NISSAN Foundation. Ally.
Lawrence Technological University.
And viewers like you.